Hello and welcome to this special Saturday edition of the Under Centre podcast. I'm your host, Daramar, and I have a full house here tonight because I'm delighted to first of all welcome back Jake. He was here with me earlier on in the week. Jake, great to have you back on. And Fionn, welcome to your first show of 2022. How are you?
I'm great. I finally made it back from my little hiatus, my summer holidays, or my winter holidays, I should say, Christmas holidays. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. It's going to be fun. We obviously started the show roughly this time last year, didn't we? So we're rolling into our second year, so it's going to be fun. We've grown way more than I thought we ever would. So I'm really excited to see how we do in 2022. Also, having to start remembering now, these first couple of weeks are when it's so hard to write dates on anything. You got to take like 10 minutes to double check the date on every check that you write there. I know you love writing big, huge checks. So just double check you put 2022 on them.
Yeah, I'll try my best to now. I'm more confused by the fact that like if I'm writing the day or the month first, it depends on who I'm writing checks to these days. Because you know how our American friends like to do things a little backwards.
This is true. This is true.
But it is all, of course, it is all in love to all of our American friends who are listening to the show today and take all of our big checks because we obviously send a lot of them out because look at this production value. I'm in a gym right now talking on a show. So you can see that all the big bucks have come in from our rookie season of being an NFL podcast. Let's just see what happens in our sophomore year, lads.
I'm looking forward to it.
Jake, how are you, man? I know Thursday was a good first show to have back. It was great to talk to Sam and Phil, and looking ahead to the games actually starting tonight.
Yeah, I'm very, very excited for the wildcard weekend upcoming. Today, though, I am very tired because I woke up literally 5 minutes ago and I said, "Oh bollocks, I have a podcast to do." I'm still wearing pajama bottoms, so I won't show you those. But I did manage to put a t-shirt on, which I think is a win in my eyes.
That's the magic of internet recording. You don't need to put office trousers on.
That's the magic of working from home.
That's it. That's one thing we've learned in the last 2 years of working from home. Business on top, party at the bottom.
I couldn't agree anymore there.
But the reason why we're doing this special Saturday edition of the show is because we're actually going to look back. We're going to look back at the start of the season. If you are a long-time listener, you may remember we did a show series where we gave our predictions for the AFC and the NFC. So we're going to look back at those predictions and see where we went right, but more importantly, where we went disastrously wrong, which happened a lot. I'm going to pre-warn you. We were very wrong in a lot of places, lads. So get ready to eat some crow now today because, we're going to be shown for the shams that we are now when it comes to predicting things. But no one gets it right, to be fair. It's always so hard to predict at the start.
When we pitched this idea, it was like the title for the pitch idea was like an accountability show. And you know what? I really feel like more shows, especially the big pundit shows on national broadcasts over in America, they should be held accountable because they get to make predictions. They get to change them nearly week in, week out. No one's asked going back trying to see what Randy Moss was saying about the Vikings 3 weeks ago. So like I think they should be held accountable. We were doing really well. We're all doing really strongly in our week to week predictors. So it'll be interesting to see just how far wide of the mark we were before anyone even kicked the football to begin the season.
So when I was on the opposite end of that, I was thinking, it's great. I can say whatever bollocks I want to say. No one's going to look back and look at it. And now I have to come back to all the lucky half of my predictions are gone. Listen, otherwise we have a whole another 40 minutes to discuss.
We will get more in depth in that in a few minutes. But what I want to do first is because we actually haven't had the chance to speak to it yet about it in depth too much on the show. I know, Jake, we touched on it lightly with Sam Farley because obviously he's a Jaguars fan and he sort of has obviously a foot in the camp there when it comes to it. But it's the head coach vacancies because as we saw this Monday just gone was of course the infamous Black Monday where a lot of NFL coaches end up losing their job and GMs too now as well. And then also there was a couple of days after, like the Jets, of course, firing Joe Judge, and the Houston Texans there surprisingly letting go of David Culley there. I think it was on Thursday evening, actually, I think it was. So I'll just run through some of the teams, all the teams, if you aren't aware. So you have the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Minnesota Vikings, the Las Vegas Raiders, New York Giants, Chicago Bears, Houston Texans. So we have all of their teams there. So 8 teams are currently looking for new head coaches. But before we go into who do we think can suit which team, is there any, and I'm sure we're all agree there is definitely one team that stands out in this, but was there any sort of team that you were looking at and you were thinking, why did you get rid of this coach? It was a very surprising decision, do you believe? Fiona, I'll go with you first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take the obvious one right off the bat. It's got to be the Texans. Nobody expected anything of them. And a man we'd never heard of before, or at least I haven't, and I don't pretend to keep too up to date with the coaching trees and stuff, but I'd never heard of him before. I was expecting an absolute shambles, and he managed to get at least probably 3 more wins than most people gave them in the preseason. So I was impressed by that. I did see just recently they released an article. They were talking to the general manager of the Texans, and he said it wasn't so much his performance this year, more about the vision that he had for the team going forward. And that's something I think makes the seat in the Texans a little bit tricky, because I think at the moment they're a little bit deluded about how quickly this is going to turn around. There's a lot of stuff in that building that needs to get sorted out before that franchise starts on an upward trajectory. And personally, I would have liked to have the guy in there, the guy that all your bit pieces have a relationship with, and maybe you can keep some good performers, because most of that team is on 1-year contracts. You might have been able to keep a few good performers around and keep the momentum rolling a little bit, see if you can get an extra win or two next season. So it's a pity for him, and it's also a difficult seat to fill, I think, going forward.
Yeah, with the Texans there, sorry there to cut across you. I was looking as well, and the GM is Nick Caserio, isn't he? And he was that holdover from the Pats, who everybody says he's like a Southern gentleman talking in the ear of the ownership. And apparently he didn't get on with David Culley, and he wanted him gone as well. So when your GM doesn't actually like you, then you're kind of fucked anyway. So, but I believe David Culley knew he was stepping in as a 1-year stopgap, just get them through the year, and he knew that. He got paid $4 million as a first-time head coach to go out and have a year. So, if anything, he's $4 million richer. And now he has a bit of a head coach resume with a success in the eyes of a lot of people. So, if he goes for head coaching this year or next year, he's probably looking a lot stronger than he was before he took on the Texans job.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, Jake, as well, that you were saying about Nick Caserio, was that I think one of the reports that I came across in regards to his David Culley's dismissal was, I think Nick Caserio liked to be in the headset on game day. So, and he wants to continue that. And my guess is David Culley did not want to continue that. That was maybe the difference that caused him to move on. Which, when you have a GM wanting to play, head coach and be calling plays, that's not a good sign. If we take it to this side of the pond and football, like, lads, you probably know, like with Manchester United having a vice chairman in Ed Woodward, who was a banker trying to play football manager, so we've seen that it doesn't end well with these guys that don't have the experience, that thinking that they can do it, and then just trying to, insert their will and trying to make it happen.
Well, we've seen what happened last year, the year before, with the Texans, and the very same thing, but on the opposite side. The head coach wanted to be the GM, and now the Texans have a GM who wants to be a head coach. It's just not a good era for the Texans.
Definitely not. What do you guys make of and I know, Fiona, you mentioned the Texans as a surprise. Obviously, the big surprise on Monday came when Brian Flores was told that he's no longer the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. 2 really good seasons with the Dolphins, finished with a record of 24 and 25. On the cusp of the playoffs, both years that he played. Yes, this season started off rough. I think he started off 1-7. Then he went on a 7-game winning streak to go 8-5 8-7, and okay, some difficult losses towards the end of the year, most notably that Texans game, that Titans game. Finishes with another good win over the Patriots. Had a good record against the Patriots in his time as well. It seems as though he's been a little unfairly treated in this scenario. It seems as though there was a power struggle there between him and, I think it was the GM. Was it Will Greer? Was it? Is the GM over there in the Dolphins, who's been there for 20 years, and Shane Ross, I believe, is it Shane Ross? Is the owner of the Dolphins, and decided to go with his 20-year man and stick with him instead of sticking with Flores. But Jake, I'll start with you on this one. What have you made of this whole situation going on in Miami?
Yeah, it's a shocking kind of that was the most shocking head coach fire of the Black Monday fiasco. It was shocking, but then the reports coming out that he was butting heads with a lot of players and a lot of other coaches. Apparently he had at the end of or halftime, I think, or at the end of a match, he had a shouting match with Tua, and mentioned that he wanted fucking better QB play. So when you hear reports like that, you can probably see why he was let go. A 1-7 start is hard to start off the season. I know he went on the 7 streak to finish, but when you start off 1-7 and you're having arguments with players, then your GM probably knows what's going on and wants to get rid of you. Where they go from here, I haven't got a clue though.
Yeah, I have a little bit of sympathy for him. I'd be having arguments with players if your team goes 1-7. That is clearly not a 1-7 team, right? Because they just won 7 on the bounce then after that. So I don't mind giving out a little bit, because you're the coach, right? So you put the game plan in place, but you don't play the matches. So clearly somebody somewhere was not totally keyed into what their duties were. And I do have a lot of sympathy for him, because especially in that 7-game run, the defense stepped back up to what they were the year prior. Tua, who got seriously injured last season, had a slow start and got better and better as the season went on. So their upwards trend continued all the way, even the little stumble right at the end. As you mentioned, Dara, they still played pretty good football. And I think Miami fans would be happy. And I don't mind a little contentious coach if he was having arguments, it was working, it was firing the team up, because you don't go on a run like that if you really are a bad football team. So
just looking at the schedule here, the first 7 games were maybe a bit more difficult. They lost to the Bills 35-0, which was obviously shite. And then the Raiders, Colts, Bucks, they lost to the Jags and the Falcons 2 weeks in a row. Lost the Bills again. Then they beat the Texans, beat the Ravens, beat the Jets, Panthers, Giants, Jets again, beat the Saints, lost to the Titans, and beat the Patriots to finish off the season. So the second half season was kind of easy anyway. So maybe that's contributes a little to their 7-game win streak.
Yeah. Maybe. I mean, I have to say though, in the same way I mentioned that I wouldn't be jumping necessarily at the Houston Texans head coaching seat. I think the Miami one is one of the more attractive vacancies that's out there, especially if you are a offensive minded coach and you can help to grow a little bit more, because that defense looks solid. I as far as I know, they're not expected to lose a whole lot of players off that defense this offseason. So I think Miami's in a good spot at the moment.
Yeah, and it's interesting with Flores. Of course, he comes from the Belichick tree of coaching, and it's something that we're going to have a look at in a future show a little more in depth. But I want to ask you this question, guys, with it, because there is a bit of talk now with the Belichick coaching tree that it hasn't performed to the levels that people would expect. You think this legendary coach, his disciples, should be doing well. Obviously, Mike Vrabel is sort of the exception to the rule. He's doing quite well over in Tennessee. But is there anything in the argument that I look at it when it comes to successful teams, and when I see players or even say position coaches going from really successful teams and being used to having really successful teams, going to these other teams like in Miami and stuff like that, and when the culture is not the same, and when it's, I hate saying losing culture, but like these teams are losing teams. They don't make it to the playoffs. These are trying to become a Patriots. They're not a Patriot style. do you think that these coaches have been too used to the success that they can't handle when things start to go wrong? So then it turns into like this Flores, shouting matches and destroying relationships and becoming trouble grabs that, they're so used to this level of success that when it comes to something going hard, like things going a little hard, that they can't handle.
For me, I think I would put the blame further up. You hire a guy off the Bill Belichick tree, you're clearly going for this tough, no-nonsense, efficient business structure in terms of your franchise setup and your roster. And half the time, I think the GM and the ownership don't fully commit, right? They're not going to let Brian Flores just gut the place and really mold it in the image of the New England Patriots, which is what I think you're essentially trying to do anytime you hire off the Bill Belichick tree. I think that's what he's most known for, that and his game planning. So I have a little bit of sympathy because you're brought in to change the culture, this losing culture, but at the same time, not with the same trust that you would get if you were Bill Belichick himself. I think if he walked into the Dolphins, he would have a carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. And I think that's where they get handcuffed a little bit. And if you're not fully committed to a structure like that, it's not going to work because you need everyone in the building to be on the same page when it's that kind of very strict, very tough kind of mindset where you will have arguments because you are expected to do your job very well, and don't go above and beyond. We don't need you to do that. We've seen that in the Patriots, especially it's exemplified at the quarterback over the last probably 15, 20 years. It's just play the game. It's not necessarily game management, but play what the defense is giving you and what your team is good at doing. And that can be difficult to accept as a GM when you want these changes, one, to be instant, and two, without any drop-off, without any gutting, without any fan upset that you've got rid of X and Y players because they didn't fit the mentality that you're trying to build in the building.
Yeah, I agree with you there because we know that, I know personally how a Bill Belichick coaching tree subordinate comes off as, and we know they just aren't successful generally. I don't know what that is. There is a part of it that obviously when you watch one of the most successful franchises in all of NFL history with a head coach for the past 20 years who is essentially the GM as well, and it's been so successful for so long that when the coaches come off the tree, they also want that success. And the only way they see it is how they've witnessed it over the past number of years. So they want to come in and have a lot more control. And obviously they come in and they don't have that much head coaching experience. So then not only do they want to have more say in, say, drafting personnel, all this sort of stuff, they also have to coach the games, manage the players during the week. And they just don't have that experience, and it just fails quite miserably.
Yeah, totally. And like I said, we'll have a look at that at a future show, and we'll actually probably go through a few more head coaches and see like what the success rate is. I don't think it's great now when it comes to Belichick and his disciples. But guys, I want to ask you, with these other head coaching jobs, what names are you looking out for? What names do you think is going to suit these teams? Fiona, I'll start with you on this one. What do you think? Is there any team that you see pop out to you and then a name and you're thinking that's like the perfect combination right there?
I don't really. I've seen a lot online. I think Flores being linked to the Bears. I don't think that would be a bad combination. I think he can probably do a lot with that Bears. I like how he did with the Dolphins on a strong defensive team, which is what the Bears are at the moment, and build up a young quarterback with, I would argue, quite similar traits to Tua as he came in. Maybe not to the same success rate in college as Tua, but Justin Fields certainly, while he didn't necessarily shine this season, he didn't also prove himself to be a complete bust. So that could be a good combination in my eyes.
Yeah, I've only really been keeping an eye on the Giants for the most part now because we have a GM search and a head coach search. And the names I see linked quite a bit is the Bills player personnel director for the GM spot, something shown. I don't know his actual full name. and then the head coach opportunity would be Brian Dable, I think, the offensive coordinator from the Bills. So I would be quite happy with that now, to be honest, because we know the Bills can build a successful team, and the head coach or they have a nice offensive scheme as well. So hopefully that can pay off, but we'll have to see how it goes. But the most shocking thing I've seen is, again, on the Patriots coaching tree, is that the Texans are looking, their front runner for head coach is Gerard Mayo, the linebackers coach from the Patriots, which I just think is the maddest thing ever, because, well, one, it's Nick Caserio, so obviously he has ties to the Patriots and a lot of the guys in the Patriots organization, but Gerard Mayo, like, who has heard of Gerard Mayo coming into this season or coming out of the season?
I know. And it's interesting that you mentioned Brian Daboll there, because, you know, the one thing that we talk about the Bills is their inability or their refusal to sort of run the football. So if you do bring in a Brian Daboll, what's that going to do for Saquon?
I don't know. I mean, he's coming off an injury and stuff. He hasn't been successful this year. And then next year is when you have to decide, really, when you're not keeping him or giving him a second contract, etc. But I don't know if it's a refusal to run the balls by the Bills. It's just an inability to do so. I don't know what that reason is, but they are just the least successful team in the NFL for running the ball. I don't know what it is. They can throw the ball any way they like, and Josh Allen can obviously run the ball, but anytime one of them running backs get the ball in their hands, they're just going to get hit at the line. So maybe their run block is terrible. I don't know. But then again, coming to the Giants doesn't change that for quite a bit either.
As I was going to say, I don't think the Bills line is as bad as the Giants line, so I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or not when you're talking about if they can't make blocks. But I understand what you guys mean. This actually, one question there I want to ask you very quickly before we move on as well is, there, like you mentioned, Jake, that the Giants are looking for a GM and a head coach. It's the same with the Vikings. It's the same with the Bears. Are you looking to get your GM in first and let your GM find your head coach? What way would you prefer the team to go about it?
Yeah, ideally, I think you have to have your GM say yes or no on the head coach. Maybe the ownership could say these are guys we like, but the final decision has to come down to the GM, because at the end of the day, they're going to be working every day with this head coach and they have to be on the same page. So I seen Joe Judge being forced with Gettleman, and nobody likes Gettleman at that time, and then we got Joe Judge in the mix, and then obviously we've seen how that ended up. So apparently they had a really bad relationship as well, so that doesn't help things.
I think the GMs tend to survive a bit longer than the head coaches anyway. So if you're looking to put a plan in place for your team, I think it's more important to nail down that GM and be as an ownership and nail down that direction you want to go, and then trust him to make the coaching hire that gets him there. And I don't know, Jacob, I'm not sure if I like the New York Giants head coach and see. I'm not, like, obviously it's very alluring that it's New York, it's the Giants, it's a huge franchise, but the quarterback doesn't look great. The line doesn't look great. The defense is okay. It can be improved pretty quickly, but it's not the biggest problem on the team. And then also you have the fact that there's no immediately obvious prospects or available free agents to fill that quarterback role right now. I think it's going to be hard to sign one of those big names that gets like Bieniemy and all the big four names that kind of get floated every time there's a head coaching vacancy. What do you think you're going to struggle as well to find that head coach?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the GM's going to come in first, and that's an attractive position because obviously, as you said, they last a little bit longer than the head coaches, but he's coming into 2 first-round picks next year. So if you use them two right, maybe avoid a quarterback, let Daniel Jones play out his final year. And if he sucks as much as everybody thinks, then you have a higher pick next year. So if the GM finesses it right this year, then you're probably set up in 2023 for a lot better success. And head coaches probably tend to get 2 years, probably, like on the general, even if they're bad, unless you're Urban Meyer level bad. So if they pick the right coach, I haven't heard Bieniemy in discussion anywhere actually this season for a head coach, and as much as we did last year. So I don't know if he is actually looking for. He certainly has been posted for the Giants head coach job anyway. The front runner seems to be Dable at the minute, but
I think his problem is always that the Chiefs
You
are
said he was
always
so
go
well.
long. They always go long into the postseason, and like everyone gets real nervous then because a lot of the free agents that are already out there start to get like snapped up by teams that want people in the building now, and you kind of get all the really nice spots are gone because
I think
you kind of want the Super Bowl. You don't really want that beautiful Jacksonville Jaguars head coaching vacancy over another Super Bowl ring, I don't think.
I think what happens is that they have a week or two in between the end of regular season and the wild card or whatever, and they are allowed to interview for this week. But if the team is in the playoffs, they're not allowed to interview after that. So you can have your guy in place, and then after, say, they win the Super Bowl, then you have him in place to come over. I think, didn't that happen with Josh McDaniels, where he was offensive coordinator? He was told he was going over to, I don't know what team it was now, but then
was it the Colts?
He was it was the Colts. He was coerced then to staying on with the Patriots as well. So that can happen, but generally you can have your interviews and stuff before the playoffs start, have your guy in place, and then after they finish in the playoffs or Super Bowl, then you have your head coach.
Yeah, you mentioned that Jaguars one. That's interesting what they're doing. They went with the rookie sort of first time NFL head coach. I know Urban Meyer's old and he's been in the college game for years. He's still technically a rookie though, when it comes to it. And all the reports is that they're going to go the complete opposite way and get someone who's experienced. And I saw the names of Doug Peterson and, wait for it, Bill O'Brien. So,
yeah, but
I'm back from Alabama.
We tend to forget how Bill O'Brien was actually pretty decent as a head coach. He was just terrible because he was trying to be the GM, and we obviously seen trading away DeAndre Hopkins and all the best players and acquiring terrible players for that. So good head coach, terrible GM. Apparently he has come out and said he's not going to be the GM this
the Texans, though, during that time did have a Deshaun Watson. They did have a DeAndre Hopkins, like you mentioned. They also had a JJ Watt as well. You know, they had some very good players. Like the Jaguars, don't have those style of players there. You know, they have Trevor Lawrence. Yes, he had a decent. Sorry,
they do have a boatload of picks.
The Jaguars, no, they don't.
Well, they're about to have the very first pick in the draft for the second year running. So
so they'll get a.
They're going to get the edge player.
They get an edge defender, you know. So it's not a great rookie class for like having the first overall pick, I think.
Well, I mean, having a JJ Watt, a fresh JJ Watt at 20 is probably ideal if he is that. Yeah. Everybody's saying he's that good, so that would change that defense of that team.
Well, yeah, we'll see when it comes to draft time. Obviously, we'll talk about it a little more. But let's move on. I'm sure we'll talk more about it once these vacancies get filled, and we'll talk about more to see if they were good fits or not. I'm sure by September, Jake, the Giants will have their head coach in place. I'd say.
I would hope by September they have a head coach in place. I'm hoping that they have a head coach and GM in place before the Super Bowl.
We'll move on though, and we're going to, as Fionn mentioned earlier on, go to the accountability stage of this show. We are going to be looking back at our predictions for the NFC and the AFC and see where we went right and where we went wrong. And you know what, Fionn, because it was your idea for the show, we're going to start with yours on this. And we're going to start with your NFC predictions, and I have them up here. And wow.
well, you say wow, but look, we'll get on to everyone else's right now. I want to highlight two things here. The NFC North order, correct. That's not particularly hard, but you know what? Pat on the back for that. Green Bay Packers record, also correct. NFC West, I got every single record correct, but all the teams completely wrong. So
you got it wrong.
I'm giving myself half points on that.
No, pal, you don't get half points for getting the right record for the wrong team.
The Eagles surprised me. The Giants let me down. The Cowboys I was always going to bash, and I'm very disappointed with how they performed this year in a bad way. And then Atlanta were much better than I thought they were going to be, pretty much exclusively because of Cordero Patterson And then the Sam Darnold project did not work out well in Carolina. That kind of, I know we've 3 people to go through, so I'll keep it just to maybe the highlights that stood out to me, and they were my 4 or 5 big points that I noticed when I look back. Obviously, it's really difficult to get the records exactly correct, but the fact that I only got one order correct as well is not great.
You can see the clear NFC East biased by you and by me when we get to my ones, because obviously 10-7 and the Giants coming in second in the NFC East with 8-9 was a bit hopeful, instead of the Cowboys coming first and Eagles coming second in that division.
Yeah. I don't apologize for the order, right? I'm always going to put Washington up front. Maybe
that is a running trend, though.
Yeah.
I think throughout these whole predictions, especially in the NFC, that's a running trend where we've obviously influenced each other so much talking about our own teams that we had these grand ideas that we were going to, win divisions and have better records than they actually had.
And Fionn, for all your talk of Russell Wilson falling off a cliff, you decided you would put him at first in the NFC West.
Yeah, I don't know why I decided to do that now. When I look back, that was a terrible decision. And by the way, it has absolutely been a cliff for Russell Wilson. He has not looked good. I think Dara will agree at all. Of course, he has those trash yards, but I hate that yards stats for quarterback. I mean, Derek Carr is up in the top 5 yardage every season, and they haven't won a playoff game for 12 years or something.
But
so
the Raiders are 10-7 this season. So he probably
they're
has a
10-7,
decent amount of yards.
But the most important game that they're going to play is coming up this weekend, and I guarantee that they lose it. So
the Bengals have that curse though. So this is where we're at.
But whose curse is stronger? And look,
the Derek Carr curse or the Bo Jackson curse?
The Bengals have a new quarterback who's never played. The Raiders have the same old quarterback they've had who's tried to break this curse for the last 5-6 years straight. So
it's a tough call, that game.
And look, a caveat that I like to throw in all the time is Washington played with their backup quarterback all season, literally 17 games. So
there's excuses. There we go.
I can't even say that because they still looked competitive. The fucking Washington football team. The Giants played with one Mike Lennon, who obviously is terrible, and then we moved on to Georgia Bulldog legend Jake Fromm, who was obviously terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's my self-analysis of my preseason predictions for the NFC.
Let's move on. Actually, we'll take a look at. Let's take a look at my NFC predictions, and they are not great. I'll be honest.
It's always tough to be first one out. Everyone's laughing at you how wrong you are, but I know in the background that everyone else is going to be worse.
I had the placings of the NFC North correct. I didn't actually, because I thought the Bears would be better than the Vikings. So that's wrong.
That was the easiest one as well.
Yeah. I had 3-14. This is me clutching at straws here. I had 3-14 for the Lions, but they finished 3-13-1. So I got the win total correct.
I'll give you that one right. You get a half point for that one, Darren. But unlike Fionn's right win loss and wrong order, doesn't make sense. No points for Fionn, but half point for Darren.
Again, I was influenced by you guys giving your teams a better record than I actually thought they would, than they actually got. The same with the Seahawks as well. And I thought the Cardinals would be terrible. I gave the Cardinals the Seahawks record. That's what I gave them. But that with I think apart from that, the North and the South, I got the division winners right. I kind of pooped on the Saints a little more than probably I should have. Who would have thought that having 5 different starting quarterbacks in the season would give you a decent record? I didn't give that. And that's one thing as well. I should say that we all pooped on the Eagles so much for this year, and now they're in the playoffs.
They just got a couple of lucky wins at the end, didn't they?
Jalen Hurts looked so trash when he came in at the end of last season. I don't blame us for that. I'm sorry. They did well. I have to give them that.
Technically, they're in the playoffs, but how long are they lasting as well?
Well, this is it. It's the classic. It's the Raiders scenario. Do you know what I mean?
Or the football team from last season when
Yeah, when they had the one and done.
Actually,
That's
was
it.
that a
They might-
competitive playoff game? I don't remember.
That was, yeah. It was a competitor against the Bucks last year.
Bucks,
yeah,
wasn't
Yeah,
it?
remember Heineke had tried to win it right at the end with the big. He had the big
Uh-huh.
dive and touchdown. We just couldn't get the ball back one more time to try and score. But
yeah.
That was actually I remember that was good.
Yeah, but let's see if I can find Jake's ones here as well. Let's see
We
how.
don't need to.
yeah,
we
also
could
Jake
assume
is
I got
doing-
them right.
Jake is talking big time, but Dara, me and you know that he hasn't even got AFC predictions. So
Well, I won the
Yeah.
AFC predictions.
he was so wrong. He got 0. So don't
I definitely got all
apart
of
from
them
us,
right.
Fionn, where we got like minus 1,000 on our AFC predictions. Now, to be honest, but Jake, here's your one. Now
Oh my God.
you were really down on Green Bay, especially because you gave Green Bay 6 losses this year.
Yeah, but to be fair, they ended up 13-4. Like it's 2 losses more. I would say that's a pretty good guess. They won the
No,
NFC
fair,
North.
that's
and
not
it's
a pretty good-
two
no.
off.
To be fair, you got the South pretty much spot on.
Actually, you had a good South, yeah. I
Yeah,
did have-
you got the South pretty much spot
I
on.
had so the Bucks got 13-4 at the end. I got 14-3. I had the Saints right, and I had the Panthers right, and I was
Yeah.
1 off on the other 2. So I mean, I'll take that as an immediate win.
The one that stands out for me the most through all of us is why we thought the Rams would be so bad this season. Like
I
And the
know.
Seahawks so good.
I guess we just didn't trust Goff, or Stafford coming off the Lions, which I mean he wasn't always very good, but they obviously had enough in the tank. I mean Cooper Kupp just ruined every defense that he went against. So
Yeah.
I guess that helps.
It's because you listen to me and you shouldn't listen to me.
Yeah.
I mean, even like we can see that obviously there's an NFC East bias for me and you, Fionn, but me and Fionn, I think gave the same like the NFC West biased as well. We both put the
Yeah.
Seahawks at the top. So did Darren. Now that I'm looking at it,
Actually,
So-
all 3 of us had the same order for the NFC West. All
No,
3
we
of us.
didn't.
No,
Me and you did.
I had the Cardinals finish last.
Ah,
Yeah, but we were really low on the NFC West as a whole. We actually got that completely wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
know.
don't think we accounted for like a Russell Wilson injury in the middle of the year.
The NFC East, the NFC East gets me though because I mean I don't know how we thought the Cowboys weren't going to be good. I don't know if that was pure bias or not, but obviously
That was
they-
definitely biased. That was
Just
just
definitely
Dak
biased.
Prescott is not a good quarterback. That's what happened there, and we all just bought in. And look, he wasn't. Well, they got like 14 interceptions or something by your man Diggs, and that's how you win games. So that
And then
helped a lot.
The Eagles we obviously thought were terrible, but they had a couple of wins at the end. I think that probably got them into the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah.
They
Well,
won- I'm just looking now, right? So they lost to the Giants at the end of November. Then they won the Jets, won the football team, won the Giants again, won the football team, and then they lost to the Cowboys. So, like, that's probably putting you in the playoffs. I think if they don't win half of them games, they're not getting the playoffs.
the two hammerings of Washington basically got them into the playoffs because
I
like
think so, yeah. And the
9
Giants.
and 8, like even New Orleans at 9 and 8 didn't make the playoffs. So even one loss there against
But
Washington puts
if
them
they
out.
lost to the Giants and the Washington football team, both your records would have been the same. So you probably
Yeah.
would have been a lot worse.
Mhm.
Yeah, but he didn't.
I think
And they're in the playoffs.
Dara, I think we kind of, I hate to admit this, but I think we have to give the win to Jake here. He got 2 divisions
Yeah, he
orders
does.
correct,
Yeah.
and everything else was miles off, same as us. But
Well, he was only 1 off on the Bears. To be fair, even though he got the standings correct in the North, he was only 1 loss off on the Bears.
no, look, we're not doing closeness. Because I think we have to just go by order. We got these so
I've
long.
already
We have to
given-
just go by who got the order most
Yeah.
correct. And
I've
I think 2
I've
division
already
orders.
I've already given enough stick for not being close, so I can't
Yeah,
stand on
and
my own.
we might as well give it to him, Dara, because he can't win the AFC, so he's not going to be.
I've already won the
overall
AFC by
winner
not
anyway.
having something.
He was smart enough not to have anything for the
Yeah.
AFC. That's what it was.
Hey,
But
I'm
let's
gonna look
have
here.
let's have a look at the AFC here. And Fionn, you were first on the last one, so I won't let your one go first on this
Fair
one.
enough.
I'll go first on this one. So here was mine, and I really did not think the Bengals were going to do anything this year. That's the standout right there for
Mhm.
sure. The Steelers I got right, barring their draw. You know, the Browns and the Ravens I thought were going to do a lot better than they did.
Yeah,
Same with the Colts, and I was a little too high on the Jaguars and a little too low on the Texans, and I really did not think the Raiders would do anything this year. And now look at them. Well, was it 10-7 they got into the playoffs with, wasn't it? And AFC East was pretty much correct.
It's kind of the easy one, though, isn't it?
That was kind of the easy one. It was only really between New England and Miami if they were going to switch. That was at the start of the season. So, but yeah, not a great AFC.
No, I agree with you. I have nothing else to add. I agree with you. Not a great
I don't
AFC.
know. Now, you got the Bills, you got the Pats, you got the Dolphins, you got the AFC East, right? Order-wise, not
records.
any of the results, right?
Completely wrong NFC. Completely wrong, or completely wrong North, completely wrong South. And you got the winner of the West, correct?
I got the winner of the West, correct, yeah.
You got...
That's not great.
That was probably the easiest division to pick from as well. You were really low on the Bengals for some reason. And
come on, we had no way of knowing they would get 10 wins.
If you look back at the start of the year, we were coming into this with, I was pissed off at the Bengals because they went for Jamar Chase in the draft and they didn't go and get a tackle.
So used the revenge.
Who was just coming off his knee injury, and then Zach Taylor, who's like a coach who was on the hot seat as well. I was thinking, this is not a recipe that is going to go to the playoffs, let alone win the AFC North.
So you decided to let your emotions pick your winner.
Worth remembering as well, guys. We did this after the preseason, before the start of the season, when Jamar Chase pulled one of the biggest sandbaggings we've ever seen in NFL. He dropped every single pass in the preseason. Everyone was looking at him going, oh my God, what have they signed? Like, this is terrible. No connection with Burrow, no understanding of the offense. And then he goes and sets some sort of rookie record for yards or receptions or one of the stats.
Or both, maybe. I don't know.
Or both. I can't remember.
He goes for 700 yards against the Chiefs.
As NFL pundits, this is things we should really know. But there you go. Dara holds it all together. He usually knows all the stats. And me and Jake just talk shit.
Wing it.
Yeah,
that's the appeal. It's the talking shit.
Hey, it's better than half the Fox shows where they just have 3 people that don't know anything and just talk shit all the time.
Maybe we should do that because they're getting the big bucks.
They are getting the big bucks.
Fair enough, actually,
Right. We are a little pressed for time, so Fionn will go through your one very quickly here. There we go. There is your AFC predictions.
Again, the same with the AFC
North completely wrong.
You all had high hopes.
South half right. I think I should get at least some credit for how many wins I gave the Texans. I was only one off, and no one could have seen that coming. Our own Texans correspondent, Graham, over in Scotland, was looking at me like he was going, how are you giving them 4? How are you giving them 5 wins? They only had 4.
You want a point for getting it wrong.
I do. I want a point. Yeah. Well, given that, how are we going to split with Dara? Because I got the West winner correct, rest completely wrong, East correct. So it has to be me, given that I got half the South and he got none of the South.
Yeah, but to be fair, look how much you shit on the Chargers.
That's true. But they didn't win the division. They still, and they didn't even make the playoffs. So in my defense,
you gave them a terrible record of 5-12.
I don't remember why I did that. I have no idea why I did that. Did Eckler get injured in the preseason or something? Maybe that's what I was thinking.
Did you not believe in Justin Herbert or something?
No, I see. That's what I don't understand. Now I like Justin Herbert a lot. I like how he plays. I like his attitude. So it doesn't make sense. But I'm gonna give myself the win for the AFC. So it was a win for Jake in the NFC and a win for me in the AFC, based only on the fact that I put the Texans and the Jaguars in the correct order. You can't
get points for getting the wrong order.
Someone has to win.
I don't know, but you can't just declare yourself a winner for getting it wrong.
Okay, Dara, Jake,
we're all losers in this.
We're all losers.
Except for me, who won.
Yeah, we're all losers in this.
Go on, Jake.
Okay.
You can tell
Let me just look. Let me take a look here on my phone of the two at the same. Okay, so Dara, you got the Ravens wrong.
I got the Ravens.
We both got the NFC completely wrong. Not a single one in the correct order.
Got the AFC North wrong for sure.
Well, if you give like, half
Fionn.
points for like draws, I got the Steelers record right. I said they would be 9-8. They were 9-7-1.
Yeah, but Fionn guessed them as 8 and 9, so
Yeah.
that indifferent though. You get the half point on the win, he gets the half point on the loss. It's
No.
impossible to judge.
No, it doesn't.
What?
How is
Yeah,
that
if
right?
that draw was a loss, then they would be 8 and 9.
No, they'd be 9-8.
Okay,
They were
Darren gets a point.
9-7-1. So if
Darren
they got
gets
the
a
loss,
point.
it would have been 9-8.
And you both got the Chiefs right. Okay.
But I was nearly bang on Houston and Jacksonville, two terrible.
Nearly
teams.
doesn't count.
That was wait, you just gave Darrell a point for nearly being right on the Steelers.
That's a half point for getting a half win.
What my 2 half points for the Houston Texans and the Jacksonville
But
Jaguars?
that's for a tie. You can never predict that there's going to be a tie in a regular season game.
Well, you could never predict there'd be more than one win for the Houston Texans, but I
Can I-
did, and there was.
Can I pick a tie here?
Okay, we'll do a tie. We'll do a tie.
You know,
okay.
You know
Okay.
what, you are putting up the better argument. I'll give you the win on this one. I don't like. It's not.
You
it's not much
you
of
just
a
have to
win. but
want
you-
it more, Dara. That's what it is.
Yeah,
What they
you can
teach
have
in
the win
football.
on this one. I'll
Just
give you
have to
Squeakiest
want
wheel
it.
gets the oil, as they say.
Oh, I'm a squeaky wheel, all right. I don't know anyone who disagrees.
Don't we fucking know it?
Oh, good. But yeah, so they are.
Oh, hang on, we have to
predictions.
do mine.
Oh,
Yeah, I got
sorry.
everything
Did
right.
you
We don't
find
need to
yours?
look into it. No, we have to.
Oh,
we just have to
okay.
assume I got everything right.
Right. So Jake gets a win in the NFC and the AFC.
Yeah,
I think
for
it's the only
Jacob
fair thing to do.
Yeah.
On
That's
track
it.
record alone.
alone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I'm sure Fionn doesn't mind that as long as he wins a prediction contest at the end of the season.
Yeah.
It's tight.
I'll take
It's
that.
tight.
Yeah.
It's tight. Fionn was
The
real
worst part
cheeky.
is I
Jonas
dropped it
cheek-
in the playoffs last
It's
season as well,
shocker.
so I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, but you should be
Jake,
automatically.
you've done that. You
deducted.
did that like 4 times at the start.
A
of the season.
minus six.
You were like,
they were 6-point favorites, and you were picking them as an underdog. That doesn't count.
Worst record. You were doing that so much at the start of the season when teams
No, I
had like
wasn't.
weird records. You were like, worst record.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe I was. I don't remember. But still, doesn't matter now because we were tied up, and you're picking 6-point
I
favorites.
remember because my brother actually follows the show and he kept texting me like, how was Jake allowed to do that? Like,
To be honest, at the start of the season, I forgot we had done it for a prize at the end of it,
Yeah,
and then
so
when
you
I,
were kinda-
and then I remembered, I was like, I better start kicking into gear here because I think I started off 4 weeks in a row with terrible records.
I love that we wrote Al in as well to help pay for this prize at the end of the season. It's split between 3 people now instead of 2. Has anyone told him yet?
No, I think you just broke the news from there now.
Congratulations, Al. You don't get to play, but you do get to pay.
Get a really terrible agent.
You're just giving everyone now a brief glimpse into the pages group chat right now for what's been going on when it comes to Sunday predictions. But we're going. This is actually, I think it's a great place to wrap up the show. Of course, later tonight we have 2 of the wildcard weekend games. We have the Chargers, not the Chargers. Sorry, they didn't make it. The Raiders traveling to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals, and then of course later tonight we have the Buffalo Bills taking on the New England Patriots in an AFC East divisional matchup for the playoffs. If you want, just go and go through our YouTube page. Just search Under Center Podcast on YouTube. You'll find our preview show for the wildcard weekend games where we talk to NFL writer Sam Farley and, of course, friend of the show, Phil Perry from NBC Sport in Boston. We'll put it up on the socials before the games start as well if you want to check out, see what we were thinking ahead of that. Fionn, we didn't get a chance to speak about it with yourself, but for tonight's games, we'll keep it brief. Just for tonight's games, who are you looking at now for these 2 games?
I'm a Derek Carr hater, so I'm going to go with the Bengals and the young gun to break the duck for the Bengals. Someone has to, so I'm going to take the Bengals, and then I'm going to take the Bills, but I'm going to take the Bills in a squeaky game. I think the Patriots are going to make it difficult. I just think at the end of the day, Josh Allen's experience in the playoffs is going to help him out over Mac Jones. But I expect it to be a pretty close game there.
Well, he'll have the power of Viagra behind him, supposedly, if all reports are led to be believed, to help him get through this, because it's going to be a cold one there in Buffalo tonight. So we'll see what happens there with that. Jake, Fiona, as always, thank you so much for hopping on and being accountable today.
Accountability.
Yeah.
It might make us concentrate a bit harder next season when we do it again.
You'll have to remind me at the start of next season. We're doing it for a prize, not to be acting the bollocks with it.
But that is where we're going to wrap up this show. And make sure you are following us on our social platforms: Twitter at UnderCenterPod, Instagram the exact same at UnderCenterPod. If you want to follow us on Facebook, you can, facebook.com/UnderCenterPod. Our YouTube, like I mentioned there a couple of minutes ago, just search Under Center Podcast. That's where we put up all of our shows. You can watch them there, watch back in some of our previous shows. Like I said, our preview show with Phil and Sam. You can also get the audio version of the shows wherever you get your podcast. Under Center Podcast, just search for there. You'll find us there. Subscribe, download, listen. Of course, you'll be getting this show as well as a preview show from Thursday night too. But we hope you enjoy the weekend of playoff action. You won't be having to go to Red Zone and going to picking every game and seeing what's happening in every game. You can focus on the one game if you prefer now. If you do prefer Red Zone, unfortunately, you have to wait till next year until that comes back. But listen,